Servus and welcome to another episode of the Pro Hockey Pod, episode 20. I can't believe there's been 20 episodes already, but we're still kicking them out here. This week we got a buddy of mine, another guy from Burlington. We grew up together playing in the Burlington Eagles minor hockey system, ended up training together a lot of summers, skating. I watched this guy work his way up through the OHL and on to pro, and then spent a lot of time in Europe. He's just recently returned home, but welcome to the podcast, Alex Hutchings.
Yeah, Harrison, thanks for having me on, buddy. Congratulations. I didn't realize it was 2020 already. Good for you. No, it's exciting time for me and my family, like you kind of touched on there to start. But it's an honor to be on here with you, buddy.
Yeah, happy to have you on. Another Burlington Eagle. Can't have enough of those on here. But we always start from the beginning, man. So you were born and raised in Burlington, Ontario. Like, is that where you first basically, learned to play the game, fall in love with the game of hockey?
Yeah, I would say so. Kind of like the typical story of the backyard rink or whatever. Had that growing up for a few years, and then I guess started with like not power skating or whatever would have the equivalent of that would have been in the early 90s. And then yeah, started doing minor hockey right away, like the what's it called, the paperweight or whatever it was. I think that's what it was called before the Burlington Eagles actually started. Yeah, made my way up there, and it's kind of loved the game at a young age, and obviously still do to today. And I don't know, yeah, it's been fun.
So you brought up like starting at a young age, and obviously we met each other in the Burlington Eagles system, but we didn't meet each other until I think we were 12, whatever year that was.
Mhm.
But did you always like play Burlington minor hockey? Is that where you started, and were you always on AAA, or did you have some growing to do in terms of playing?
Yeah, no, for my whole, I was fortunate enough to play on the AAA team from, I think 7 to whatever age. And our teams were trying to think even like the Burlington program wasn't necessarily like the greatest at that age. And then I don't know, like if I feel that honestly around the time you got to Burlington, we were like 12, 13, it kind of like our team became much more competitive. I feel like when we were younger, we weren't that great from like my memory at least. But no, yeah, I've started in Burlington and finished there with it was fun. Like when you look back to see maybe you could leave to another team or whatnot, it's probably benefited me to stay. And you meet like you hear of some guys minor hockey, they're on a new team every year where we played together for so long and the same guys. It's kind of cool. I think that relationship you can build with lots of friends.
Yeah, you definitely build that camaraderie, I'd say,
Mm.
and makes the tournaments and stuff more fun. But yeah, I don't know, like us as a team, I believe like that first year I was there when it was like me and Connor Lyons, like
Hmm.
I think we were a middle of the pack team, but we had a good playoff and got to the OMHAs. And then after that, I really felt like it was us in Oakville every year, and then you had maybe like Halton Hills up there, and then like we were always seemed to step ahead. Like it was normal to go to the finals of the SCTAs or the
Hmm.
OMHAs. Like we kind of built. So you would know better than me if before it wasn't so much like that. But I wanted to ask you one thing, like especially in minor hockey, obviously transitioned through the rest of your career, but you were always known for your speed. Like you were just two steps ahead of everybody. Every time we back then when you had those rare TV games, like at the
Yeah, yeah,
horseshoe or whatever, like the
yeah.
the commentators would always bring up like how explosively fast you were out there. Did you do anything to gain that? Like you mentioned before, like you were working with coaches at a young age, like learning to skate. But did you do a lot of power
Hmm.
skating or stuff in the gym?
Well, yeah, I guess like with the terms of the gym, we didn't do that until we were older. Now I know it's completely different, but the skating thing, I think I just probably a little bit of I guess luck, like just the way my stride was and being a little bit smaller. I guess I would have been typically, yeah, the you know the fastest or faster guy on the team or league. And then when I got a bit older into like your question about like the training and whatnot, you kind of you kind of become more equal with everyone. Obviously, everyone gets better and better the older you get, and it's more competitive. And I do remember there was a time, probably around my first year junior where I was fast, but not quick. So I did change my training. I remember a little bit, but I think everyone was doing more plyometrics and whatnot. And that kind of gave me another gear for the first, 10 steps being, an elite skater, I guess you'd say, in like the OHL for that matter. But no, I guess that was kind of my something that I excelled at maybe more than others, even when we were younger. But
No, 100%. Like, as I said, especially through our, whatever it is, your Bantam years, and then you get into your
mhm,
minor midget year of draft, like you were just probably one of the fastest guys in our league for sure. No, hands down. But no, you're definitely known for your speed, and you also had a really good shot too. Um, so evidently our last year playing together was our minor
mhm,
midget year. So our draft year, you end up putting up 100 points there in your draft year, and you end up going in the second round to Barrie, I believe 36 overall.
mhm.
Um, Obviously an exciting time for you, and also your family too. At that time, was your plan, like, was your mind always set on the major junior route in terms of OHL, or had you ever thought about, hey, maybe down the road I could go NCAA? Because, as kids, like some of us, are solely fixed on one thing and maybe don't know enough about
Mhm.
the other.
Yeah, I think I definitely wanted to go into the OHL. Obviously, with ended up going, but there was that discussion though when I guess it would be right around the draft because then teams are calling you. Will you go or will you not go? And I would say to every team I would go. But there was a couple schools that got caught my attention. I guess we took it a little bit more serious, and I don't know, like emails and phone calls kind of were going a little bit back and forth, and then ultimately we made the decision to go to Barrie, and that first year was a big struggle for me. And then going in like to start that year, I was maybe like not actually starting the season, but like training camp. I was gonna maybe essentially terminate the contract that I had signed with Barrie, like mutual, and say, okay, we're gonna let you not necessarily go to school, but I would go play in the Burlington Cougars or whatever it would be. And then it ended up working out where the team was like, no, we want you to stay, and kind of made it work. And it was not the best first year in terms of like ice time and all that, but kind of made it work as the years went on. So
Yeah, that was one thing I want to talk about because obviously, being a high draft pick and you're going to that league at
mhm,
16 years old. So you're playing against, guys who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. So guys have been in the league a long time, probably, veteran guys who know how to
mhm.
play. Back then it was different than now. I feel like back then there was a lot of hitting, there was fighting, like guys were trying to, if you're
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
through the open ice trying to hit you, like it
Mhm,
was, a learning process. So what you brought it up. So like you said, it was a very
mhm.
tough transition for you. So what was tough for you? Like the
Yeah.
playing the style of the game, the living away from home, new town, new city, or just a mixture of all?
The Because some people like even just like say a homesick type of thing. I didn't have that because Barrie's, it's like an hour and a bit away from Burlington. So my family could come up to lots of games. That was not an issue for me. But like fortunately that wasn't. Um, but like you said, so I couldn't remember exactly, but it was 36 overall, right? So Barrie the year before, it's not they were a good team. I think they went to the conference finals, I want to say, and lost. Yeah, I think it was the conference finals. Anyways, the next year we were going for it again, my first year. So not the best time to enter the league. We had really good forward group of we had Rich Clune was a good NHL player, Brian Little, and then a few more other ones I just can't think of right now, but that had good OHL careers. Spar was a good
Sparzy
player.
was there, Hunter
Yeah,
Tremblay.
yeah, Trombley. Yeah, Trombley was really good too. I mean, guys that didn't necessarily prolong their career into the NHL, but they were really good
Hmm.
OHL players and did go well in Europe as well. But yeah, so it was kind of, you know, we had our first round pick, Stefan De La Rivera, we're two like completely different players. He's like a grinder, kind of a role player, and was amazing at what he did. And he was definitely ready to play in the OHL at 16. And you could see like he should have been playing over me in his role and what he could bring to the team. And, for a guy that was looking to play top 6 minutes, I was never going to. I just wasn't good enough at that age. So yeah, I guess that it was frustrating. It sucked, all that, but we kind of stuck to it. And then I had a good summer that next summer, and our team changed over. We were rebuilding the next year, and kind of took off from there. I don't know if you want to touch on that anymore, but yeah, that's when it kind of changed. Was that the next season?
Yeah, that's actually a point I want to bring up, but I
Yeah.
just thought of a question before that I kind of wanted to ask you just
Mm,
for maybe the younger listeners out there. So when you were in your minor midget year, getting ready for your draft, like did you have an agent or anyone like representing you, or were you just doing it on your own? Because you hear
yeah.
of guys having agents, and maybe if you had one, maybe you can touch on like, the pros you thought of having it and
Yeah.
maybe some things that you didn't really need in a sense.
Yeah, so because I'm sure the rules have all changed now, but I believe at our time you weren't allowed to have or maybe the terminology was different. If you're going to go to school, he's not an agent; he was a advisor or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So yeah, I think so. So I got approached by my old agency when we were. It was like the early tournament, like October of our draft year, and so I signed with that agency right away, Newport Sports, and they were good to me, going through the kind of the ups and downs and whatnot. And they were good. Like, I don't know, some kids might not handle the pressure maybe as well. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I kind of thought that it helped me in ways having an agent, because I remember getting phone calls from them on Tuesday night. Hey, you're going to play Niagara Falls at 8:30. We're having 6 scouts come to the game. Like, you need to perform. Like, that was phone calls you get at that age, where it's not for everybody. Like, right? Like, there's guys on our hockey team. If they had that situation, they might not necessarily do well. And of course, I didn't do well every game, but I thought it helped me, and it kind of like made me handle some of the pressure at a younger age. May have benefited me, but it's not for everyone. So I think for my situation, I was happy that I got an agent moving forward, but at the same time, I can see why some people would shy away from it, but they do prepare you in many ways, which I think that if it came down to it, if I had to redo it all over again, I would advise anyone to get an agent early, because they can, as long as you're on the same page, they can help you. And if you do want to go to school, or if you want to go to the OHL, that's how I see it, at least.
No, you brought up a good point about the pressure situation. For example, like
Mm-hmm.
personally, myself at that age, if I had someone call me being like, "Hey, there's 6 scouts tonight, you got to play well," I would have probably panicked because it takes
But the
something to
goalie
grow into,
position too,
Yeah, yeah, no,
the
for sure.
goalie position might be different, but yeah, like, yeah, it's not for everyone, that's for sure, at that age. But yeah, so for me, it was good. But
No, I think it, like as you said, for you, it helped you prepare for what ended up happening years down the road of being in pressure situations, having to perform, and at
mm-hmm.
an early age, if the quicker you can get used to something, adjust, it probably benefits you later down the road. Um, back to one other point you brought up. Now we're just skipping back to after your first year
Yeah,
there. So you said you obviously had an incredible transition from year one to year two. So year one,
yeah,
you had just 5 points in Barrie, in only 30 games, as you said. You were kind of in and out of the lineup, whatever. And then the next season, you play every game at 54 points. So you mentioned you guys were rebuilding. So it obviously gave you probably more opportunity to play. But at the same time,
yeah.
like, how was that preparing for camp going into year two? Like, how was that summer for you? Like, you kind of knew what to expect and you were just able to kind of go forward with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, of course, what you said, like, our training group that we had working out in the off season, we were, pretty committed guys, right? I thought it was a professional group that we had at 16 and 15, the age groups, right? In my opinion, and that definitely helped. Worked on a few things that the coaching staff and Barrie kind of said, there's lots of things I needed to work on in my game, and getting stronger was obviously a big thing for off the ice. And then I think I was working on my shot quite a bit that summer as well. And then going into that first training camp, it didn't go that well. Excuse me, second training camp, it did not go that well. I wasn't playing much, and you have mixed thoughts, mixed signals, because it's training camp where everyone's rolling lines, but then I still needed to prove myself. I was a nobody, like, just because I got drafted. But there's new first rounders, new second rounders that come in, and it wasn't going there that well. And then I remember the first and second games of the year, I had two strong games, scored 2 goals, like 1 goal in each game. And I believe there was maybe a suspension or an injury, and that kind of like, helped me get that kind of that opportunity, whether it was playing on the power play, or going from the second unit to the first unit, whatever it was. And then, yeah, having, I guess 29 goals, I think I finished with, or 24, 29,
29. Yep.
29 that I finished with that year was a great second year. And then just tried to carry that momentum over to kind of get better each year, each summer.
Oh, you brought up some good points there about just, at the time you weren't solidified guys. You still had to earn, and there was, as you said, there was first, second rounders, whatever, coming in from the newest
Hmm.
draft. And
Hmm.
it's also about getting opportunities, right? Like you said, you got some opportunities early on that probably led to you, gaining confidence, showing the coaches, hey, I'm ready. I'm able to take this next step, which you obviously did. And so that year you end up, as you said, 29 goals, 54 points, played every game. And then the next year, so your third year, putting up 68 points. So again, a progression.
Hmm.
Missed some games there, so there could have been more points. But I wanted to ask you, you end up getting drafted to the fourth round by the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is a tremendous feat. But you also, I wanted to ask, do you think it benefits you having a later birthday because you end up sliding to that after your third year of OHL eligibility, where normally for most kids, it's, after your second year is your first chance to get drafted?
Hmm. Yeah, like I've talked to a few people about this actually. So I remember, I can't remember if it was a scout or an agent that I was discussing this with, and he kind of broke it down. He goes like, it's all depends, who comes and sees you at certain times and when it is, and what that draft class excels in or whatnot. So I went from, like you said, 5 points to 54 points, and I was something new. It was like, scouts had seen me play, let's say, 6 times in 2 years, and the 90 draft was stronger than the 91. I'm pretty sure, like it was a deeper, at least forward draft. So I don't know if this would be the case, but maybe just because I was something so new and fresh, and scouts only see 6 or 7 times, maybe I would have got drafted higher than the next year, because then they're seeing you another 6 or 7 times that year. It could go both ways though. They could love you more, or they could go, oh, okay, well, he scored this many goals, but minus whatever, didn't block that shot, didn't do this, whatever it might be. So I don't know if it, at the end of the day, I knew I knew going into, like, going to major junior, I understood, like, okay, I could get drafted in 2 or 3 years, not two. That probably gave me that confidence, like, okay, I still don't, I want to get better every year. I want to play, like, I need to perform to be able to get in the lineup, but that I had that one more year to really show people and then potentially get drafted. Do you follow what I mean? Like how it kind of gave me like a little safe, an extra year, another safety net. I don't know.
Well, I think it takes some of the weight off your shoulders because
Yeah.
most kids, for example, yourself, if they're eligible for that second year and they put up 5 points their first year like you did, they're probably like, oh man, I have to have a really good summer. I need to have a really good year. I'm not getting drafted. And then it's
Yeah.
like, again, it's that psychology, put too much
Hmm.
pressure, things in
Hmm.
your head where you knew, you know what, let's just focus on progressing here. And you obviously did your second year, and then you took another step your third year and ended up getting drafted. So,
Yeah.
um, no, it's, when it's possible, I mean, you might as well take advantage of it. And that's like one of your breaks, I would say, that you could have
Hmm.
had, was having a later birthday. And then I wanted to ask you, so how was that first camp for you? So you get drafted, you go down to rookie camp and stuff. How was the first Tampa Bay Lightning camp?
That was good. It was, yeah. What did we do that one? It was in, oh yeah, for development camp was always in Tampa. It was fun. Yeah, that was, Hedman was the drafted, like their first pick. I think he would have gone second or third overall. So he was obviously a stud and still is. But yeah, he was something special right away, because like development camp, obviously, for the listeners, but there's no pro players. It's just the new draft picks and the college guys or whatever. So that was really cool to see, just because he was, you know, pretty. You didn't know as much as you do about the Europeans now, right? With social media and all that. So he was pretty cool to see. I was impressed right away, to say the least. Yeah, it was fun. Like those development camps in July. There, some people I don't like going to them because it's in July and maybe you're not at your best shape and whatnot. But I think Tampa did a pretty good job of, they get that you're not peaking in your off season training in July, right? So you might not be in the best skating shape or whatever, like you want to be strong and show them what you can do. But there's a good balance of, we did a 3-on-3 tournament and did things like that I thought they did well. Whereas other teams I've heard, it's just an absolute grind and you need to take time off after it. But no, I thought Tampa's was pretty well run.
And then after that, you end up going back to Barrie for one more year again, put up
Mm-hmm.
more points. So every year you take a step, and then I believe after that season you end up signing your entry level there pro contract. So did you feel after that fourth year that, you know what, other than, say winning a Mem Cup or something, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've progressed enough in this league where I'm ready to make the jump to pro?
Yeah. So what happened with that was, yeah, we had a great year team as well. We lost in the finals to Windsor, and I think they won the Mem
Mm-hmm.
Cup after that. So Barrie was a great team. We won 25 games in a row. I think we lost 4 games like after to start the year. We were 8-4-1, and then we finished with I think 8 losses all year. It was pretty cool year. Um, but I had a hernia in the playoffs, and I didn't know at the time, and I kept pushing, like trying to play, of course. And I got surgery in, geez, it would have been late, like June, and I had a terrible summer. I didn't get to train like at all. And then I went into that first camp and was definitely not in like good shape. Ownership on Tampa changed, so they sold the team, and everyone was new. So they had their own, like Steve Eisenman was brought in, like really good people, but I wasn't their draft pick, right? So it's when I look back at it now, yeah, maybe I should have gone back and played a fifth year of junior, and then I guess you would go back into the draft if you don't sign, and maybe that could have benefited me. I don't know, maybe, but at the time, he was offered a good contract, and I had kind of done what I thought was enough other than winning in junior, and thought I was ready. But if I look back at it, I probably should have played my overage year, but I didn't know, like, those are decisions that kind of come quickly, and maybe should have played a fifth year.
Well, I mean, you're obviously, as I said, you made progressions every year
Mm-hmm.
in the OHL, and you think, okay, like I put up 81 points this year. If I put up, for example, 96 the next year in my last year, is that really going to benefit me, or should I be making the
Mm-hmm.
jump now to start that transition? How was the jump for you? Like, how was the adjustment to pro hockey? Because you go from playing against 21-year-olds or 16-year-olds to,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere between 18, 19-year-olds to guys in their 30s.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, I again should have probably played an overage year. Didn't do that. Had some bad injuries that slowed me down in my development for my first year pro. And then I got sent to the East Coast League, which is um, obviously it's still a good professional hockey league, but that's not where you want to be. Of course, you want to be in the AHL or the NHL. It's like everyone. So that was tough. And we had a good team, but an older team as well in Florida. So it's not like junior where the next year the overagers move on, everyone gets old, you get older, and you might become the guy. All these leagues have top players in them, whether they're 35 or 30 or 21. So it was definitely like a challenging year with some injuries on top of that. And yeah, I guess I would say I probably wasn't ready to do the jump to pro. And then the next year after that was kind of the same thing. It was a tough couple of years for me in that early early part of my pro career per se. So.
Yeah, there's two things I want to talk to you about that. Obviously, you played your first 3 years of pro. You're going up and down between the AHL and East Coast, and as you said, there was some injuries in there. You were learning to adjust as well. I wanted to ask about like that grind. Like, someday you're, for example, in your second year, like when you played 12 games in Norfolk, but I'm assuming you were there for longer,
Mm-hmm.
you're one day you're practicing in Florida, maybe you play a game on the weekend, then you're going up to Norfolk, then they're sending you back down. Like how was that, always kind of going up and down, and also just in your head being like, am I going to come in
Yeah.
to your locker room today and see a suitcase packed, whether it was good or bad?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was to like talk about that second year. That one I was injured. I didn't have any transactions like you would think though, because I started the year in Florida, got hurt, had another hernia surgery, and then came back and worked really hard. Was in great shape. I had a good what's it called? Like my rehab was, they did really well and helped me a lot, blah blah blah. And I came back in really good shape right around, I want to say Christmas or just after, and I did really well numbers wise. I don't know, maybe 12 points in 8 games kind of thing. And there was an injury in Norfolk, so I got called up and played 12 games. Maybe I was there for like 30, maybe 25. But that year, that team set the records for everything, and I think they broke every record the American League had. 30-game win streak, won like they won everything. So the time that I was there, we never even lost a game. It was pretty cool to be a part of that. And then in the playoffs was the same thing. A couple guys got sent down from Tampa, and I was maybe the 12th or 13th forward. They only dressed 11, which is I guess a little different, but you're winning every game. It was awesome. So no, yeah, that was a really good learning year for me though, because you're playing with some really good pros, and then try to carry that into the kind of to the next year that way.
One other thing I thought it'd be good to talk about those years, as you said, you've mentioned the injuries, but also like, for example, in Norfolk, they just had an incredible team. As you said, they won
Mm-hmm.
everything. I'm pretty sure I was at that finals when they played in Toronto.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I wanted to ask you, like, how was that mentally for you? So you had been able to put up points at the East Coast level. So realistically, just to be blunt, you probably shouldn't have been in that league. You should have been higher, but you weren't getting the ice time in the AHL, whether it was because of team depth or injuries or stuff like that. So how was that mentally for you? Just like, the everyday being like, you know, I need to find a way to get in the lineup, but for some reason I can't. Like, because that is something that's not always talked about. Is like it's great playing in the AHL, but as you said, when you're there for 30 games and you're adjusting 12 and you're trying to find a way to stay there, like it's obviously a mental battle too.
Yeah, it's a grind for sure. And like it goes by fast. So you don't like it's a blink of an eye and the season's kind of done. But for me, with the injuries, it really like set me back. I would say mentally and physically, obviously. But the year that really was hard on me, just because in terms of a performance standpoint, I, in my mind, and in lots of other people's as well, believe that I should have made the team out of camp was the third year, and that was I think it's 12-13 lockout year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And even with the few players that came down that should have been in NHL, I performed really well in camp and I'm be honest with the other ones I didn't. And there's times where, I'm pretty open about that, like if I was good or not. And I did really well in those training camps, or that training camp, excuse me. And they sent me down to the coast, and that was tough, like really, really hard. Um, and then fortunately, when the lockout ended, I went back up and did a few transactions that year. But for the mental side and the grind and injuries, that one was hard for me because, you know, I, as a player when things are going your way and they're not. And that was a camp where I definitely believed I deserved to be there. And it didn't go my way, and kind of like, threw everything at it in the sense of, okay, I've done everything I can do. You got to go and perform. And I did. And then it still didn't go my way. So that one was a hard one, but I mean, it's life. It makes you, you know, appreciate it more when you're there and things like that. But no, that, like you said, that was a hard one for sure.
A random question I had. So when you were doing these up and downs between Syracuse and Florida,
Mhm.
for example, are you driving or are you flying?
No, no, we're flying every time. But like the lockout one, you get a call. The lockout ends at like 11 o'clock on a Friday. So everyone that's going from that was Syracuse, I think. Yes, everyone's going from Syracuse to Tampa, and then some of us had to go from Florida to Syracuse. And we had to fly out the next morning from what's it called, Estero, Florida. We flew into somewhere around New York, and then I had to do another flight, but the flight got canceled so that someone was picking us up, and we just traveled the entire day right into a game, which I know happens a lot in pro, but it was like a get up at 5 in the morning and go play a game at 7 o'clock at night. And I literally drove. We just got right to the game at 6 o'clock, even late for the game. It's pretty brutal. But no, that was one that was tough. But it's yeah, you're always flying for those.
Some crazy stories, I'm sure. So then after that, those 3 years of, kind of what we just talked about, you end up signing in Rochester there, play the full season there, 51 games in the AHL. One thing I want to talk about in Rochester was I remember being in France and the Spengler Cup was on, and you guys got invited, and I remember, there's not much on TV in France that wasn't French, but this was on, and I was able to watch it, and I felt like personally you were given more opportunities there because of the bigger ice, and they knew that you were a guy that had speed, and you were able to show kind of your ability on the big ice. Like that tournament, you guys, I think you only played 3 games, but you especially were very noticeable in that tournament just because of the bigger ice, able to use your speed, kind of like I remembered you from minor hockey in the OHL.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a cool year how it worked out for me. So it was. I was going to go to Germany and play because I had no contract or whatever, and then my agent called me and said, "Let's get you an ECHL contract in case you don't make the an AHL team." And because I was going to go on a tryout. And I go, yeah, perfect. Like, I guess that's what you do. So I signed with Gwinnett. And then he's like, you can go to 3 teams. 3 teams offered me a tryout, which is nothing amazing, but I'll take whatever, right? So I kind of just went through what I believe the rosters were maybe the weakest and kind of limited it to Rochester. I go, okay, I know a few of the players on the team. Some are obviously amazing players, and some I thought that I could maybe, have an opportunity to make the team. So that's exactly what I did. And then I went in there on the tryout. And who was it? Joel Armia is a player, and I want to say Montreal, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Finnish guy. He broke his hand at camp in Buffalo. So then I made Rochester because of that, because he was out for like 6 to 8 weeks or something, and then kind of excelled a little bit. And then I didn't even know that the team was going to the Spengler Cup until obviously I made the team, and that was really cool. Like something that at that year, especially the Americans, because they don't see it as we do as Canadians, they didn't want anything to do with it. A lot of guys didn't even want to go. And I was kind of, we don't get a Christmas break. This might not be that fun, but everyone could bring a family member. If you weren't married, you could bring your girlfriend or your brother, whatever you want. And it was amazing. It was an awesome trip. Guy, like everyone, even the Americans that didn't want to go, they were like, this is the best thing ever. The European hockey style, the lifestyle. Davos, Switzerland is beautiful. And like some of us, some guys enjoyed it a little more than others. I think one guy went 7 for 7 when he was there going out. But yeah, no, it was the guys that wanted. Like I was taking it much more serious because I knew I wanted to go to Europe. And I remember we talked when you were there, or when I was there. You said the same thing that you just mentioned. More comfortable on the ice, kind of more my style, and it definitely made me go. Was ready to go to Europe the next year, kind of thing.
Yeah, just touching on Davos first, like I've heard from many people, obviously Juris, who's played in 2 or 3 Spenglers, unbelievable town. I know my dad, it's on his bucket list, wants to go one day. Hopefully I'll join him. But the funny thing about that tournament was that watching those games, like you were out there playing hockey and like half your teammates, you guys were losing. So then they would just try to fight everyone because they were so pissed at the end. I remember that. And I think that's why they haven't had a North American team back since. Like
that was Patrick Waugh's son. I think his name's Frederick Waugh. And it's one. There's no, especially in Switzerland. I think Germany maybe there's a little bit more fighting. Sweden there's none. They were. That was hilarious. I forgot about that. There's like the pretty good video on YouTube. I don't know. You should post it on the thing on your Instagram of it. It's when he's like going nuts down the locker room tunnel. I don't know if you've seen it. It's posted online. It's hilarious.
I'll have to Google it. I'm pretty sure I saw it live, but obviously that was 10 years ago now. But so then, you just brought up some good points there. Like you kind of in your head was like, okay, like this could be an avenue for me going to Europe. And I believe the next summer when you went to Germany, you ended up going to Krimichau, where
Mhm.
I have worked for 2 years. It wasn't kind of late in the summer. Like you signed like pretty quick and had to fly out like within that week, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, it was super quick. So I was training, doing, the normal hockey summer. And then I was gonna go one more year. Where was I gonna go? I was gonna do kind of probably the same thing with Racha. That like again, it was a great year. Like super lucky and fortunate to be there. But that year, Buffalo went through three GMs. Like it was a complete turnover of everything. Kind of distill almost what Buffalo's kind of almost been in shambles. I feel like up until the last couple of years here. Um, so there's no way that I was going to have a American League one-way contract. I would have to go try out again. And I said to myself, I think it's time to kind of to do this European thing. And having gone to the Spangler Cup, I knew that the lifestyle would be great and blah blah blah. So yeah, I remember we waited a little too long probably, and I got an offer from Krimichau, and I signed that on like a Thursday night and flew out the next day. Like it wasn't a week; it was literally the next day. I remember doing that. It was pretty crazy, and I think we played 2 days later to start the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was in September because I remember you saying you got
Yeah,
there and immediately had to go into a game, like kind of
yeah,
like what
right
I had to
away.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, those are things that when you look back on and like come on podcasts or talk to your family friend, whatever, like those are the best stories. It's ridiculous, but I don't know. I love that side of it, in my opinion, at least.
I feel like too whenever it happens that quick, you end up playing always well because you don't have enough time to think about
Yeah,
like or stress about it. Like you're going in, you get on the flight, you get off. Okay, where do I got to go? Okay, now we have a game. Like let's go. Like that was same with me. And um, as I said, it takes away from spending the day thinking about it. Oh, am I gonna,
mm-hmm.
new league, whatever. But for those listening, like obviously I worked in Kermit. You've played there. Like I feel like Kermit is a really good starting point for someone who goes over to Europe of that caliber. Like it's a small town in Germany. There's obviously not a lot to do, outdoor rink, but it's cool. Like in the winter, it's awesome. The background, the fans are great. Like, would you agree with that? Like you're obviously treated well, but it's a good starting point if you want to go to the Del
Yeah,
2 and work
yeah,
your way up.
yeah. No, you're definitely to the European. If you're an import going to Europe to play, or if you are German listening or whatever as well, like Krimichau is very they rely on their imports, I feel like, more than other teams. I don't know if that's still the case or if you felt that way, but if you go there, you're going to get your opportunity. So you got to take it and run with it. And that's kind of, I guess, it's more pressure. But if you go and you perform, and like you said, the doors are open, right? So now I had that same feeling, or have that same feeling. I went there and I didn't do amazing off the start. There was a little bit of an adjustment. The team wasn't that great, which sometimes it's just a feeling. When you're winning, everything's great, right? And we were not that good of a team. But then we signed another import or two, and then we started playing a little bit more together, and it was great. We had a great time there. And unfortunately, we were in I don't know if it would be called the relegation. It was the I think we came 13th. So right before that or whatever, we had to play a series not to go to relegation, I believe.
Well, it's called
So
play down, so it's always
play
11
downs.
against
Okay.
14, 12 against
Yes.
13.
Yes. So we
Um,
did that, and then we spanked them. It was Hellbron. We won in I think we won in 5 or 4, but we did really well, and that's huge for the city, right? So they're all excited, and we were too. But someone who was new to European hockey, now when I think about it, yeah, like it's a huge deal. But when you're first there, you're like, okay, well, obviously we're going to try as much as we can to win, but if it doesn't happen, like obviously you'd be upset losing, but you don't see the meaning of how these fans are like. They love the hockey there, and they want to be probably in the first league, but to get relegated to the third would have been just devastating, and luckily we didn't do that.
Dude, well, just a comment on you torching
Yeah,
whoever you played. I mean, you had 14 points in 5 games, so
yeah, it was
clearly,
ridiculous. We were
clearly torched them. But no, like, dude, like what you're saying, like about the fans, like, like you hear about in football, obviously over there. So soccer, it's obviously
mm-hmm.
like their religion, and then you have not the same magnitude, obviously, but these fans are passionate, and like I won a relegation series in Heilbronn, and the party after, like, and just the fans like coming up to you, thanking you, like crying, like, you don't realize at the time, but like, this is what they live for every Friday, Sunday. Like they'll drive 7 hours in a car to go watch you play, then drive home on a Sunday and have to go to work the next day. Like it's crazy for second league hockey too. Not to say that it's not good hockey, but it's just like, how dedicated they are to their personal teams, through the ups and downs. And yeah, like it's good that you guys got to stay. They've been able to stay every year since. And no, definitely treated well there. And then obviously after, like, you obviously had a good year. I think you finished first in your team in scoring in 62 points in 50 games. And you make a jump to the Allsvenskan. So your first stop of 3 in Björklöven. How was that adjustment? Because it's obviously way different hockey from the Del 2.
Yeah, you said it. Like it's just completely different hockey, but it's a better league. It's different. It's different hockey, and it is a little bit better in my opinion. But the pressure side of it is different. I always say this to people, like Switzerland, or the DL2, the pressure you have to perform in terms of like scoring goals and points is absurd. Like you have to do it, like, or you're going to get cut or whatever. Where in Allsvenskan in Sweden, you have to perform in all areas. Like you got to block shots, you got to back check, you got to do everything that everyone's got to be a 200-foot player. Of course, they want you to score and perform on that side of things as well, but it's the pressure that you have there is a little different. And then if you're winning, obviously it changes a lot as well. So yeah, going to that league was completely different. And the Swedes are really good players. They don't. If you had Swedish guys that wanted to be imports in the DL2 and they come and they could do great, they would do great. Their Swedes are really good hockey players, as you can see now in the NHL how they're doing. So it was a bit of a transition that way, just because the open hockey in Germany, especially the second league, it's not at all the same in Sweden.
Well, that two-way game that you brought up is like, obviously Sweden, it's faster, I feel like, too. Like, and as you said, all the Swedish players are very good. That's why you see today there's 17-year-olds playing in the top league and getting drafted. And it's but just to break back to your point of being an all-around player, that's where in your league, like, one, it's hard to put in that league, it's hard to put up points because you have to be responsible defensively. So like for yourself, you played, I believe, 7 years in that league. You had 1 year with 48 points, but most of your other years, you're in the 30s because you're being forced to, hey, we're defense first here, block shots, cover the defensive zone, and then go on the offensive zone tack. Whereas in the Del 2, imports, I would say, if you have 4 on a team and 3 of them are forwards, there might be 2 of them that are like, hey, go put up points. And, if you're average on defense, like, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, it's very you're saying exactly like the when I first went to Sweden, it was even more so like defensive first. It's changed a little bit. Like you're gonna have the imports that come in, or the Swedes that like put up 50, 60 points, and you don't need to worry as much about the defensive side of things. Not saying that the guys that do aren't good defensively, but and everyone kind of knows if you're doing that well offensively, there's going to have to be some type of, you're going to have to cheat the system a little bit here and there. But that's how, like, Patrick Kane, like, gets 100 points and he gets multiple breakaways. Yeah, he's blowing the zone a little bit, but it's about timing and doing it or reading the play and doing it at the right time of the game. But yeah, no, and then in Sweden, it's how do I say, it's a softer league, less hitting, but it's more the physical play in the corners were more than Germany, if that makes sense. Like the puck protection and like the hit and pins and
puck
having
battles.
to beat puck battles, beating your D to the net, boxing out, like that didn't exist in the DL2. Or when I was there, I'm sure it's different now, but now it's Sweden was way more difficult that way.
No, I think every league, like, as I said, this point, it's, 8-9 years ago. Obviously, they've all made transition steps forward. But at Sweden at this time was just like way more advanced in that stuff, as you said, with the puck battles, the races to the net, stuff like that, where, you know, Germany might have been a little more relaxed in that front. But after Bjork Loven there, you end up going to Winterthur there in the second in the second Swiss league, another very, very good league. Winterthur, I think, was at that time was a lower team, low budgeted. What was the reason behind that? Because obviously, as I said, you had a good year in Sweden. I felt like you put up, 30 something points. You actually played for Mikael Zeider. I know I worked with him in Heilbronn. But yeah, what was the decision behind that?
To go to Switzerland. So I had a pretty good year. I scored a lot of goals for that league at that time. Like, I think 22 probably was like third in the league in goals. It was a high number. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do in the sense of, okay, was I trying to get an SHL contract? Of course, every year you want to do that. And then I didn't think I was going to go. I kind of said, okay, maybe I'll move on here from Sweden, believe it or not, because I obviously was there for forever. But and I kind of waited too long. And I remember I passed up a deal in I want to say the Ice Hockey Liga, like it was Austrian Ebel at the time or whatever. And maybe should have taken it. And I kind of waited up until this was, I want to say it was like middle of October. I hadn't signed a contract. I was skating with Mark Durst at the Cougars there. I was doing all that type of stuff. And then I got a call from the coach or GM, and he goes, whatever, you want to come play in Switzerland? I'm like, yeah, talked to my agent, did that deal, and went over, and it was a great experience. Like, we were, a newer team, but it was awesome. At the end of the year, I switched over to Rappy, and that was a how do I say it? I was some of the listeners, I was the third import going there for the playoffs. They only dressed 2. Game 7 of the finals. Game 6 of the finals, an import tears his ACL, so I have to go play Game 7. I haven't played in 2.5 months. It was crazy, but we ended up losing like 3-2. Awesome game to be a part of. One of the most fun I played in. Then we ended up losing there, and that was it. But it was an up and down year for sure.
Well, I mean, you got a point in that one game, but yeah, just talk about that. I wanted to ask you about that because that's, obviously, like, some leagues, teams that aren't making playoffs, like, they'll allow their guys to leave or sell them to other team for teams that are making pushes. It's very common. And in Europe, and you end up going to Rappy there, and they're now back in the top league, but at that time they're in the second league. And yeah, as you said, like, you're just practicing every day. And at the time, I believe you were driving back and forth. So it was about a 45-minute drive every day from, you were still living in Winterthur there. And, how did you ever think you were going to get into a game? I want to say, because you literally got the absolute last chance, and you had been, probably bag skating every day, working out for 2 months, as you said.
Yeah, it was, I think I played one other game. One guy was sick and importing in the first round, whatever. And then, it was Game 6. The team we needed to win back to force Game 7. Great game. That atmosphere in Rappy is, I think it's a 7,000 or 8,000 seat rink. It was awesome. And so Jared Allen was a player on the team there, and I didn't go down to the locker room until after the game. And what was the coach's name? I'm going blank right now. The coach is in Germany now. Anyways, he comes down. He goes, "Hutch, looks like you're in, bud." And I'm like, "Okay, perfect." And then Ollie goes, "Yeah, I have ACLs. Looks like I'm toward my ACL." And yeah, I had to play the next day. And it was that way. It was, I don't know, like, that game I was nervous, but at the same time, like, I really got to know those guys well for my short stint. It's playoffs, right? Like, the atmosphere in the room, and then the bond between the players is great. So they were super welcoming. And as the imports go, especially the second league, it's not like I'm just entering a game and playing 8 minutes on the fourth line. Like, your first power play, your first penalty kill, first line, you have to play first everything. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that would have been unbelievable experience. As you said, the atmosphere must have been just insane.
Yeah.
The coach was Jeff Tomlinson, so
Yes. Thank you. Jeez.
he was there a while, and I believe now he's an
Clothing?
advisor or something to Larry there in the top league in Cloton. I'm pretty sure he's I know him and Larry were tight, so I think they're still working together there in the top league in Swiss. But that's, he had a long career in Germany in both Switzerland coaching. But and then after that year, you end up going back to Björklöven in the Allsvenskan. You end up playing 6 more years in that league, 5 for Björklöven and 1 for Oskarshamn there, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, like, you were part of a lot of long playoff runs. I would say they're like those teams, they're going probably every year to the semis or finals. In your case, and it's a funny story, in Oskarshamn there, you guys end up winning, getting promoted to the SHL, but unfortunately you had some other priorities to do, becoming a father, which is obviously great. But just talk about that season itself, because obviously you were able to be a part of a team that grinded all year and ended up getting promoted to the SHL, and they're still there to this day.
Yeah, that was crazy. So make the move to Oskarshamn. Don't know much about anybody really on the team. They had one import. It was Nolan Zajac, but I didn't know him until that year. Great guy, a great player in Wolfsburg now. And yeah, so we kind of like sit there. There's an older Finnish guy, the Arspi Pispinen is his name. Good dude. I remember playing against him. He's a great player. We kind of are looking at each other. He's loud. This is the like the first team party. He's kind of like got the accent. He's like, Hutch, like we're gonna be fucking shit this year. Like I don't know anyone on the team. And he goes like, I'll say it. I'm 35 years old, blah blah blah. And he's kind of going on. He goes, if you look at the roster, if we make the playoffs, that would be great. I'm like, yeah, we'll see kind of how it goes here. And then we had these 2 coaches that were just like maniacs in terms of like the system. You don't break the system or you don't play. It doesn't matter who you are, how good you are, it doesn't matter. And yeah, we played our system to a T and started off pretty well. And we just we were not losing games. We would just find a way to win. It didn't matter if you're, game on one night and you get home at 4 a.m, have to play in the afternoon the next day. It didn't matter. We just found ways to win, whether it was 1-0 or 5-0. We could really kind of play any style. And yeah, it was great. Went to the finals there, and we knew in August that my wife Cam's going to be pregnant or was pregnant, and the finals started, and I played the first 3 games, and I was supposed to play 4, and then fly home, but then I got 2 games suspect for cross checking a kid in the face, and then that was it. So I just went home, I guess, a day earlier. Yeah, and then that was a disappointing time. Afterwards, having a kid was an amazing experience, but disappointing that I didn't get an opportunity to play in the SHL. Me and Nolan Zajac, the other import, I believe he won D of the year as well. They just the GM of the team, I'm not afraid to say this, he legit would just not answer my agent's phone call. He said he was too busy to talk, and my agent goes, "Tell me anytime, I'll call you." And he goes, I'm too busy. We can't talk. And then the response was, well, I can get Lou Lermarello on the phone in 24 hours, but I can't get you on. And that was it. There's no more communication. So yeah, no, that was tough, but it is what it is. That's kind of the way hockey goes sometimes.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that that does happen sometimes in Europe, where you have guys who seem to lose their phones at times, and
Mm-hmm.
especially for you, like you obviously helped them a lot that year, and they knew from the start that, hey, I'm being a father is obviously more important. Family's more important than hockey, and unfortunately the timing happened how it happened. But I still feel like you
Yeah.
should have got a chance there. But evidently, you end up going back to Björklöven for the next 4 years there.
Yeah.
So basically, of your European career, you played 6 of 8 years in Sweden. Like, did you just feel that, that's where you felt like maybe the most comfortable, your family as well? Because obviously Candace was coming over, and then eventually, you became a father 2 times to
Yeah.
Harper and Brindley there. So like, did
Yeah.
you feel that they just really enjoyed, that's where they enjoyed it the most? Kind of felt like a second
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, so I got to the age where I was kind of, in terms of like even financially, okay, if I go try and play in another league, it'll be likely the same money. If not, maybe I'd get a little less. And then if you have a great year, you can do something else. But I was kind of at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to play for a few more years. To your point, extremely comfortable in the city. Like there's that fan base and city and everything is pretty ridiculous. They're like sell out 6,000 every game. Treated extremely well. And the GM of Oskarshamn had Oskarsshamn's a southern city in Sweden, and he had signed a contract with Björklöven halfway through our Oskarshamn year. So he went to Björklöven and brought me back, and I was there with him for the remainder of my time there. Yeah, no, it was it was a good run. Kids could have go to daycares there, and just like the way everyone your family's treated is it's pretty special, I would say.
What were some of the like you? I think it's cool to ask because of Sweden and you can explain more about it with
Mm-hmm.
the times of sunlight. But like, what were some of the big differences you noticed from North America and Europe in terms of like living?
Um, like, yeah, I don't know. So like the everyone in Sweden is very laid back. Like they're hardworking people and they do, they're what they need to do. But it's a very like you could be in North America if you're late to a meeting, like you're getting cut from the team, you're not playing that night. Like that's the way it is. And I mean, if it's 8:01, then and it was 8 o'clock meeting, that's it. Like you're not playing. Or in Sweden, like you got guys coming late to everything. Did not matter at all. I thought it was ridiculous, but then you kind of start to get like that's the norm. So that was like a much more laid back side of things. And like to your point there, like we're northern Sweden, right? So it's the sun, you don't see sun from, I want to say like November, December, January, February. The sun is it's out from 9 to 12, 9:30 in the morning till 12:30. And then it's pitch black for the remainder. When it snows, it brightens it up a lot and it's really nice. But the months of August and September when I was there were beautiful and the sun was out all the time. And then right before we would go in late April, early May, it was, yeah, it was like, I don't know, the sun would set at 11:30, 12, and then be up again at like 3. It was really cool. But an adjustment for sure.
That sounds like it'd be pretty cool, but also like trippy at the same time. Like you just
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
p-
Yeah. I
p-
know it's weird.
pinch yourself what time it is. One other thing I want to talk about, obviously, your wife Candace there, was always along with you for every journey.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the meals. Now, for those listening, I have Hutch on Snap. That was basically our only way of communicating for a couple of years. And anytime I got a snap from Hutch, it was either of a meal or it was of the Fitzgerald's pits. Him
Few
sweating,
pixies, yeah.
especially the past couple of years. But anyways, back to the meals. So you like Candace, like the meals she would make for you, whether it was for lunch or pregame, like they looked like restaurant style meals. And they
For the
also, I don't think
presentation.
I ever once saw an empty space on your plate to where you could add more food. Like they were full, completely no space whatsoever. Like, is that like, was that one great thing to have? Obviously a wife like that supporting you, where you come home from practice or whatever, and a meal's ready to go, and if you have a game, etc., like she's getting everything
Mm-hmm.
ready while taking care of the kids as well.
Yeah, no, it was yeah, Candace is obviously an amazing cook. It's hilarious because we'll have like guys over all the time. We had the years we had the children, we had like a townhouse instead of an apartment like most. So we would host like Christmases and whatever, team party, whatever, anything. We'd try and have parties at our place. It was great. And Candace would always make the food. Like we'd have like 18 people over for Christmas, and like a lot of times like people would bring things on, or like she might just do it all, and it would be like the size of our table, the different options or whatnot. But no, she's always been into that. And then with when our kids, especially were in daycare in Sweden, and she wasn't working there, she had obviously much more time to do things like that. So yeah, my meals were ridiculous. They're like I don't know. Yeah, like they were really good, and she's really good at making anything from scratch and doesn't write anything down. So I'd get messages probably from you, everyone, like, oh, what's the recipe of this? And she couldn't even say because she just throws it all in, and then it's kind of ready to go. Like, which I would not, I have no idea that was the case, but yeah. No, I was definitely fortunate with that, and Candace obviously supported me and been everywhere with me. I think we started living together in Rochester was our first year, so 10 years of this and together traveling, and it was awesome.
It's great to have a support system like that and someone who's just open to traveling, different countries, understands the lifestyle and just embraces it. And I always tell people, do it while you can because you'll look back when you're 50 years old and be like, "Hey, honey, remember when we were living
Hmm.
here and remember this?" So it's obviously great. Um, Another thing I want to talk to you about is kind of your summers. So like normally when every year you would come home and you would train here in Burlington, we would go somewhere, whether that was in the gym or on the ice. But I felt like a lot of your weekends you were going to your cottage, and I brought this up to Josh on his episode
Hmm.
was, did you feel or do you feel that having that kind of home away from home kind of cottage would allow you to kind of just escape, like both like physically from whatever you done that week, but also like
Hmm.
mentally just kind of like rejuvenate yourself for the next season?
Yeah, I mean, like myself and Josh or whoever else is fortunate enough to have family cottages, it's I've honestly never thought of it in what you just said, but it makes complete sense because you can really, you go there, it's an amazing time. Whether you have people come up or you're going literally, like sometimes the best weekends are when it would just be me and Candace before we had kids, or then just her family, like, where no one's there. It's very peaceful, relaxing to your point. And I guess it definitely would let you rewind, right? You can kind of get away from it, um, especially when we're home for, I don't know, like 10, 12 weeks. I'm probably up there 6 of them, but it kind of lets you escape everything because um, whether it's, you can't be partying every single weekend, um, and you got to pick your spots, right? That's how I at least did it. So um, you can go up there and have the social life with neighbors as well and really enjoy things if that's what you want to do. But to get away and relax, rewind. We got a sauna up there that I would use all the time, which was great. It was yeah, it was a good way to escape and get away from things and kind of just like sit back and, like, I would turn my phone off Friday afternoon. We'd get there and I wouldn't look at it until Sunday night. It was great. Um, Not very many people can go and do that on a weekend, right? So it's pretty awesome.
No, it shows I think to your kind of, I don't know if the discipline is the right word, but like, you just, hey, I'm going to the cottage, and that whole cliche of, yeah, there's no service up at the cottage. Like
Yeah,
you lived it, man,
yeah.
which is awesome. I do think it plays a lot into, we talk a lot about today about like mental health and, taking care of your body. Well, that's obviously a big part of it too, rejuvenating the brain, the mind, letting things go, relaxing. And as you said, it doesn't mean you have to go up every weekend and have parties. It could be just, hey, gonna go out in the water, maybe fish a little, chill, enjoy the sunset
Mhm.
with my wife, kids, whatever. So it's a
Yeah,
good
exactly.
it's a good thing to have. All right, three more for you here. So
Mhm.
you're unofficially not sure what you're gonna do now.
Uh-huh.
You could still play if you want, but what could be next for you if you're not gonna be playing? Like what do you see yourself doing, I guess, your life after hockey?
So to your point, like even when to the like, retiring or not retiring or whatever, me and Candace talked about this 10 years ago before we had kids, before we even talked about it. Maybe it was when I first went to Europe, whatever, where we both did. And we said, like, how with kids, how can you do it in Europe? Like, I didn't know if they were allowed to go to school. I didn't know anything. Most teams in countries don't allow you to do that, right? You can put your kid in school in Germany or Sweden, like we did. But I said to myself, or we said to ourselves, when our kids are in junior kindergarten, I don't want them to have to go back and forth. Like, I would like them to have some grounds and, go to school in September and be done in June and have your friends and live, I guess, like more of the normal lifestyle. So that's come to now, which would be September 1st. Our oldest will go to junior kindergarten. So that's where we're at now. it's always kind of to your point, like you never really know. Like I'm preparing myself for kind of both situations, whether I retire officially or don't. I work out still every day and enjoy it, so it's not a job to me that side. Um, but I've been my wife's a real estate. I know you know this, but for the listeners, who is a real estate agent, so we've kind of always had a passion of that and kind of done our own deals most of the times ourselves for real estate. And I've done what have I done? I've done like three-quarters of the exam, so that's kind of what my next chapter will be. And kind of was the plan for like 2 or 3 years since my wife's had it. We've always discussed that would be something I think that um, she would be good at it, and myself as well, and kind of like the fact that it's not the 9 to 5 desk job, that we can kind of you work as hard as you want kind of thing, but obviously you want to be successful for your family, so be able to do kind of things like that. And we've had pretty cool lifestyles going back and forth from different countries, so be able to continue and network and meet people along the way is I don't know, I think it would be a great career and something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I always felt that that was something you would get into. I just remember being in the gym and like you and like Schwartzy and Flem and all them, like guys
Yeah,
who are getting houses and buying places, like you were always talking about that stuff, and it seemed like you had a real passion for it. So, um,
exactly. Yeah, passion is a good way to put it.
well, that's you want to do something when you're done that you have a passion for. As you said it, you don't want it to be a 9 to 5 just to pay the bills. Like you want to enjoy doing it, work as hard as you want, but then also have the freedom to go to the college on the weekend if you want, or spend time with your family. I think that's
Hmm. Hmm.
one of the benefits of that. When you look back at your career, so whether it's officially done or not, but when you look back at it, did you think you would kind of have the career you did? Like, do you think you would gotten to where you got, AHL and stuff, and then traveled all over Europe?
I mean, yeah. So even my first year in junior in Barrie, I remember talking to a guy, Nick Plastino was his name. He's the overager on my team, and he was going to Italy, I believe. He's Italian, so he signed like a 3-year deal. And I wouldn't even, I guess through Mark and Josh, like I knew that he played in Germany, but I didn't know, like I wouldn't have known there was a pro league in Italy. I knew there was a pro team in Germany and Switzerland through Mark, but I didn't know whatever that how the European leagues worked. But then I kind of like remember talking to guys about it, and I actually talked to my grandpa about this. He's passed away now, but this was probably like 8 years ago. And he always, maybe when I went to Europe, and he always was like, I remember you discussing that on interviews in junior through the Barrie News about different like opportunities that you could do. Whether you play in the NHL for 15 years, some guys used to just go to Europe for a year or two and just kind of experience it, enjoy it. Whether that would obviously that would have been a better situation to be in where you play in the NHL, but for mine now to have done what I did was great. It was a great experience. Met tons of people, been to some beautiful country cities. So yeah, like when I look back at it, I didn't necessarily think about being in those certain cities or playing in those certain leagues, but at the end of the day, my ultimate goal was to play in the NHL, and that didn't happen. And then you got to, look for other opportunities, I guess. Right. And that's what we did.
But that's what I've stressed so much on this podcast. Like it's everyone has their own path, and just because you don't make the NHL doesn't mean it's a failure, right? Like everyone's
Hmm.
dream as a kid, play in the NHL, win this amount of Stanley Cups, be the best player. Like that's everybody's dream, and that's a great dream to have. But it doesn't mean that it's your only dream. And I look at someone like yourself. Like obviously you played in multiple levels of pro in different countries, and end up having a pretty good career where you've carved something out to where now you're maybe moving on to the next thing, but you're content with it, like you've
Hmm.
and there's no I mean you obviously miss playing, that's a guarantee, but you don't view it as a failure, which is good. um just looking at that guy you talked about, like he just retired after this season. He's played everywhere, like played in,
Plastino.
yeah, I played in Italy,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweden, KHL, Josh's league, and top Swiss, and just was in the
Hmm.
ISHL. So that's crazy. Good for
Yeah.
him.
It was funny. I played against him. I don't think I was ever against him in Europe, but he went back to the coast for 1 year for like a short stint. And I remember lining up beside him and whatever. Yeah. He told me even then, because I think he'd come back from Italy maybe. And he goes, yeah, I wanted to try and see what would happen here type of thing. But my plans to go back to Europe. But yeah, then I kind of looked at it a little bit more. Kind of went from there. Yeah, that's funny you said that. I wouldn't realize he was still playing, but he had a great career. He played like some high end leagues.
No, he had a really good career for sure. Yeah, as you said, play a lot of high leagues and just consistently every year like seem to find jobs, which I think is very important. But
Hmm.
last one for you here. So for the listeners out there, and maybe for yourself, if you're speaking to young Hutch at 16, 17 years old, like what's one piece of advice or maybe multiple pieces of advice you would give your younger self?
Um, I mean, the for being from Ontario and like when we were playing minor hockey, it was okay. You got to get drafted to the OHL. People thought like that was if you don't get drafted to the OHL, like maybe for that it might only last 3 weeks, a month. But if you didn't get drafted, people were like, okay, that might be it. I remember that being like a talk, like, okay, well, I don't get drafted, I'm not going to be able to continue playing hockey anymore, which is obviously like just not even remotely close. It can benefit you more down the road to not be drafted necessarily in both the OHL or the NHL. So it's just for any young kid, you know, it's pretty rare to get drafted, go to the NHL, and play 15 years. Obviously, there's going to be ups and downs. You look at anybody that's in that, like I remember after I left there, like a Mark Scheifele, like he was supposed to make the NHL 3 years in a row, and he wasn't. They kept putting him back to junior, and then boom, now he's a top player. Shane Wright's going through the same thing right now. Like everyone probably expected this guy's going to score 40 goals in the NHL his rookie year. That's just not how it goes for a lot of people. And those guys, they found a way to make it. In terms of myself, I didn't play in the NHL, but I found a way to prolong a pretty long pro career and enjoyed everything and everything about it. So it's just because if one person cuts you or they don't give you the contract, all you need is one person to like you, and that can go a long way and to build strong relationships with the management, with the coaching staff. Um, because for myself, like in Sweden, I finished my career, I had the same GM for 6 years. We had a good relationship. He understood what I could bring to the table and vice versa. So I think that's just important, that you're going to be pissed off at times because of someone, but all it takes is one person to like you. And then, you don't want to rub anyone the wrong way going down the road.
Multiple good points there. I mean, first about the OHL thing, like I myself went through that. I didn't get drafted and I thought life was over, and it was a very difficult time, and I understand with those kids, but as you said, it's not that it can end up benefiting you. It obviously, you know, kind of lights a fire under you, gives you some
Mm-hmm.
motivation there, prove them wrong kind of mentality. And then as you said, like just because one person doesn't like you doesn't mean the next guy won't like you. And you yourself, and you see this multiple times, like any GM out there, coach, they want guys that they know how they are both as players and people. So it's a kind of a risk-free investment in this guy. Like Alex Hutchings played a long time in the Allsvenskan. This is what he's going to bring me. He's going to get me these many points every year, help our team this way. Easy guy to sign every year. Like it takes the stress out of it. And so it's always good to have people who believe in you and
Mm-hmm.
stay in their good books, as you said, and try to have as many good relationships as you can, because you never know down the road when you'll run into them again, or maybe you'll cross paths in something.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's hockey's such a small world, right? Like every GM, every coach knows multiple players in every team, and everyone has their own opinion on you. And some people love you and some people hate you. And obviously that's the way it is, but you want to try and create the bond with as many people as you can to help you prolong your career. And then, it's just about having more fun, really. Like you want to go to teams that are going to win. There's a time and place to do certain things, whether it's off ice fun or buckling or bearing down to get focused or whatnot. So it's you got to find that balance. And for me myself, I think that I definitely enjoyed lots of things about hockey, but also coming home, relaxing, getting away from it all, and then kind of like refocusing and getting ready to start another year. Like every hockey player, I think when the season ends, you're either happy you won or you're pissed you lost, and then you kind of sit back like, oh, I'm kind of enjoying my summer. This is great. But then when you start to skate again in June, you're looking at your watch like, hey, I can't wait to get out of here and start playing again. So
No, it's good to enjoy every part of it. Enjoy the playing part, enjoy the off season part, because you can only play so long, and you do miss
mhm.
those, even those hard workouts. Sometimes you miss being in the gym with the guys doing that, because it was just part of the whole experience. But Hutch, I appreciate you doing this, man. It was great to go back through your story. Obviously, as I said before, you've been through a lot, injury adversity. We talked about the call up situation, and you just always found a way to grind through, work your way up through into Europe, and end up carving out a pretty good career for yourself. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing that with myself and all the listeners.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. I remember when we were talking about this, I think a couple weeks ago, and was kind of excited about it. Sorry, the voice is a little cracky. Had quite the concert last night in Toronto, so but no, it was this was great. If you're willing, I'll jump back on soon.
Yeah, man. I always want to do follow-ups, because I think everyone's story, I don't think you can really get into one episode. So
Hmm.
we can go through some other stories down the road another time. But again, I appreciate you coming on. And for those listening, I appreciate you guys taking the time every week to spend 50 to 60 minutes listening to these. And until next week, cheers and ciao.